Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm doing the end of year book tag. Apologies about the croak in my voice. I'm filming this on the same day as my October reading wrap up. I'm full of cold and totally losing my voice, but I don't have any other days this week to film anything because of just the way that social life and work is lined up, so I guess you're just dealing with a croaky girl and that's absolutely fine. I will link the original tag down below. I wasn't tagged in anybody for this, but I've done this tag a couple of times in the past and I really like it as a way of sort of reviewing your reading year and what you want to get achieved before the end of the year, even though we all know that like calendars are entirely arbitrary. So the first question is, are there any books that you've started this year that you need to finish? And I do have a couple on the go, starting like my Nonfiction November TBR that I'm assuming I will finish, so I guess I'm going to just chat to you about those ones. What I'm currently reading at the moment is Below the Edge of Darkness by Dr. Edith Wither. This is about bioluminescence in the deep sea and also about the development of the science to be able to study bioluminescence, of which Edith was a real pioneer. This book, it's taken me a little while to get into it, but now I'm really sort of in the meat of it and I'm like a third of the way through. I'm absolutely loving it. Her descriptions of the underwater world and sort of the way that they interact and the vastness of it is just absolutely incredible. Bioluminescence is such a weird thing to have evolved, and it's very cool to see the different ways that it gets used by the animal kingdom down in the deep. And also this doubles as a really interesting look at the science behind how we look at deep sea and how we study it, the interactions between when you go down into deep sea and how your presence can alter the results. And she also has a couple of harrowing near misses when it comes to some quite dangerous things happening, like one of her subs started leaking in the previous chapter and that was just incredible to read about. So really enjoying it. I think it's going to be one of these ones which is like Lab Girl or Into the Planet for me, and just like a slam dunk science memoir slash cool stuff about an area of biology. One that I've started literally this morning is The Queens of Animation by Nathalia Holt. This is a look at the history of the women who are involved in Walt Disney and sort of their the way that they've been ignored by history and sort of the contributions that they made to some of the sort of beloved movies of early Walt Disney. I'm about an hour into the audiobook and I am absolutely adoring it. It's again that wonderful combination of shining a spotlight on people who have been completely ignored by history, which I bloody love in a book, and also a wonderful history of animation, film, and how sound and film sort of finally being able to be lined up completely changed the game for cinema. It is reminding me a little bit of David Attenborough's Life on Air in terms of the history of early TV and sort of early movies, and I'm really enjoying that side of it as much as I'm enjoying reading about the women in history and sort of, you know, their struggles to be respected and things like that. So I think this one could be a firm favourite by the time I get it finished. The next question is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year with? Oh, that was hard to say. I guess the two slam dunks from September were Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House and Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. They're both classics in the horror genre, but in very different time periods. This one is a wonderful haunted house tale that is incredibly spooky and has a wonderful unreliable narrator who gets steadily more unreliable as the house starts to claim her. And this is one of the earliest examples of vampire fiction, and it's about a house in the middle of the nowhere and some mysterious guests who stay, and then the girl starts to suffer all sorts of weird hallucinations, and maybe the guest Camilla is got more to her than it seems. I think both of them are quite fun transitions into the autumnal spirit because I love me some spooky, creepy classics writing when it all starts to get a bit wintry. There's just something about the cold that feels historical. It feels like you should be curled up in front of a fire and, you know, your hunter-gatherer brain just tells you to go and hibernate. So potentially those ones, but I really feel like we've been in the autumnal vibe for a bit, so it feels a bit late to be discussing transition books, shall we say. The next question is there a new release that you're still waiting for? No, is my very quick answer. I don't really pay any attention to new releases, and I've stopped buying myself hardback books unless they are a book that I'm absolutely determined I'm going to read in the next couple of weeks after buying it, because I'm sick of buying books, especially non-fictions, and then in hardback and then going into the bookstore 6 months or a year later, seeing it in paperback and realizing that I still haven't actually read the hardback on my shelf. So I'm trying to be much better at just not impulse buying books just because they're new and shiny, and one way around that is just by being completely out of the loop of what is new out there. So sorry, I'm not your girl for new releases, what can I say? Question 4 is, what 3 books do you want to read before the end of the year? And I thought this would be a fun opportunity to have a chat about the silly challenge I'm going to try and do in December. So in December I will be fully done with all of my exams, which I'm so excited about, that they'll finally be off my chest and gone. And so I'm going to challenge myself to try and read 30 books in 30 days for December as a bit of a celebration and an attempt to get my crazy TBR down a bit more before the new year. So they're mainly classics books, because I've just picked the 30 shortest books on my list, and these apparently seem to be classics. So I'm going to chat about 3 now. Obviously I will do a proper TBR for December and talk about apparently all 30. This could be a disaster for filming. That TBR video is going to be forever. Anyway, one of them is The Man Who Was Thursday by J.K. Chesterton. This is from the Penguin English Library paperbacks. They are always beautiful, and it is a novel about anarchists and undercover policemen, apparently. I don't actually know any more than that, but it is generally a spy book, and it should be good fun. The next book is Rudin by Turgenev. This is a Russian author whose work Fathers and Sons I've read and really enjoyed. I actually borrowed this from my dad. He's a huge fan of Russian literature. This was published in 1856, so it's probably some of the like earliest Russian literature I'll have ever read, and it's definitely an area I'd like to read more about. Apparently Rudin represents the superfluous man, and in a Russian society which has become intolerably rational, indifferent and effete. Exactly what that means, I've no idea, but I really enjoyed the kind of slice of Russian life that Fathers and Sons was. So hopefully this will be a fun read, and yeah, we'll see. I also have Turgenev's On the Eve on the TBR as well, so we're going to be hanging out in Russia quite a lot in December. And then the final one is Thomasina by Paul Gallico. This I definitely know what it's about because I adored the movie version of this as a kid. It's about the like lives of Thomasina, and Thomasina is a cat, in case the cover wasn't very obvious, and it's about her different lives, and she kind of ends up running away from a small child, and it's about her trying to get back to them. I've read Paul Gallico's Jenny, which is about a boy who gets turned into a cat. Paul Gallico is a big fan of writing about like from the perspective of animals. I think one of his most well-known ones is The Snow Goose, if I remember correctly. So this has been on my shelf for ages because of how much I loved the movie as a kid. It's definitely time I actually get around to reading it, so hopefully it can be a fun comfort read when I'm wading through a bunch of Russian classics in December. The next question is there a book you think that could shock you and become your favourite book of the year? I do think Nonfiction November has got some strong contenders in it. I'm really hopeful for The Queens of Animation, and indeed Below the Darkness, whatever that book was called. One on there in particular that I think is actually going to be potentially slam dunk if I get round to it is The Dragon Seekers by Christopher McGowan. This is the discovery of dinosaurs during the prelude to Darwin, and the reason why I think this could be a really strong one is my interest in the history of paleontology has been suddenly reinvigorated because my dad and I went to the Natural History Museums recently to see the Titanosaur, which is freaking awesome, by the way. If you're in the UK and get a chance to go do that, definitely do. It's an insanely large skeleton and just makes you feel very small. But also I really enjoy the Natural History Museum because it has wonderful displays on people like Mary Anning, and it was built by Richard Owen. Built by him, or like, you know, Richard Owen is incredibly tied to the Natural History Museum, and he was a big name person in this kind of time period as well. So my kind of interest in early natural scientists has been reinvigorated, and I think that this could be a proper slam dunk read. However, it isn't top of the list of the books I wanted to read in Nonfiction November, so I am potentially not going to get to it, despite the fact that I think it's going to be such a good book, because I need to commit to the stuff that I've said I'm already going to read and prioritise the ones that keep appearing on TBRs and then I never quite get around to them. So we'll see if I get to this. And then the next question is, have you already started making plans for next year? And yes, in a way I kind of have. It will be the first year in 2 and a bit years where I haven't had any exams on the horizon and my time becomes my own a bit again. So basically a lot of reading is going to occur. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get back to hosting challenges like the Springathon challenge or Readathon, which is about reading nature writing, which I'll have to touch base with Curious Reader, who is one of the other co-hosts, and see if she's interested in doing it and if it's still going on. And indeed the history challenge, which is one that I started that is about reading history non-fiction, of which I'll have to hit up the various different co-hosts and see if they're interested in coming back on board. In terms of actual reading, I definitely want to try and get my TBR down, and I'm hoping to buy fewer books and try and get myself out of the triple digits down into the doubles, because we've been sitting actually originally around 180 unread books on my shelves for literal years. I've now got it down to 154 through a lot of reading, less buying, and some judicial unhauling. But the goal is to try and get it to in the like 90s. I think that's a more respectable number. Actual books themselves, I'm sure I'll put together some yearly TBRs, but one for definite I know I'm going to try and actually get to is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, in case you didn't know. This is one of the longest books, I think, in the world. I've attempted it at least once before on my channel many years ago. It is a Russian classic. It is a beast. This is one of the Penguin Vintage Classic editions. I think it's stunning, and I'm gonna finally do it. We'll go from reading lots of short books in December to attempting this guy starting January. And I am actually more hopeful this year compared to previous attempts because I'm doing it as a little read along with one of the girls from work. So I'm hoping by having a buddy, who conveniently is also called Emma, we will actually manage to get through this, because neither of us have managed to read it despite both being avid readers our entire lives. So I think it's time. That is it from me. This has been the end of the year book tag. I will link everything in the comments down below. And yeah, I'm gonna go lay down because I'm feeling very warm all of a sudden, and I think my body's ability to regulate its temperature has been completely shot. So I'm gonna go find myself some Lemsip capsules and have a nap. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.